Hey, how we doing, everybody? Zach Klein coming to you this week on the Inner Circle podcast from Indianapolis, Indiana. It is the 2026 NFL Combine. Aaron reflects on what it was like for him, preparing for months on end for the moment he's getting ready for the 40-yard dash. He looks to his side and one coach makes him laugh. Who was the coach and why was he laughing before running the 40? AD reflects on what the combine was like for him. Plus, Todd does a fantastic job of breaking down this week, talking to all the teams. What is their cap situation like? What value do they have on running backs, wide receivers? Who could possibly be extended during the offseason? And so much more. A deep dive into what it is, the NFL Combine, right now on the Inner Circle podcast. Enjoy. AD, what do you remember most about your NFL Draft Combine experience?
Wow, that's a blur. How does it feel so long ago? I don't know. I remember it being hectic. I remember getting there, being checked in. Obviously, a lot of meetings, but prior to that, I already did the Senior Bowl, so I was kind of prepared for it. Was at EXO, so they kind of prepared me for like interviews as far as like type of questions they're gonna ask me. Some gonna be the X's and O's, some gonna be a little bit more personal, some gonna be spitballing questions off the wall. You be like, why are you asking me this? So, I was kind of prepared for it all. I was just more trying to just get there, do good on the bench press, show that I was strong, just show my personality in the meeting room, just talk ball and run a good 40, and I remember, just preparing for that, getting ready for that. But honestly, man, all that stuff's really like a blur, man. Everything, you remember parts and bits of it, but uh, and it was so long ago, but it was a hell of a journey. Um, I guess a great experience. It opened up a lot more doors for me. And just to show the athletic ability I had, and I guess the shorts and t-shirts kind of thing. So
AD, you only do it once. You come 1 year. I come every year. I'm here again. I've been here, 15 times since you've been here? I mean, I don't what year did you I don't even know what year. What year did you come? What was your draft year? I don't
tw-
remember.
2014,
I was gonna say 13.
2014
Okay.
was my draft.
Yeah, so 2014. So I've been here 12 more years since. It's 12 more times. Uh, it's not much different than it was. Like, technology's changed. Some other things
Is
have
it
changed.
hectic?
It's hectic. It's definitely hectic. Uh, and now they let fans into the Lucas Oil Field so they can watch the
Really?
activities and run. Yes, free actually. And so
Time out, time
it,
out, time out. So when the guys is on the field doing the combine drill, they got is it packed in there like a game kind of packed, or they got a certain cutoff number?
I don't know if they have a cutoff number or not, but there's definitely, I don't know if there's thousands or hundreds, but there's definitely people in the crowd for sure.
That's crazy. See, when I was there, were just the coaches. And I do remember this. I remember I was doing I went to the Senior Bowl. Our coaching staff was the Falcons. I had Brian Cox was the D-line coach I worked with. And I remember seeing him at the combine the night before we did the 40s or whatever. And he's like, man, you just get your ass down and just run a 40. Don't be out there taking your time doing your footwork. I said, man, I'm gonna do what I need to do to run a good 40. And I remember lining up at a combine about to run my 40. I'm setting up. He's in the front row. And I'm taking my time, doing my little technique that I learned at Exos. I'm getting down, and I looks up and I take a right, and I just looks at him and smile. He started busting out laughing. Then I get out, boom. Then I run out 4.6 or whatever I ran, man. And so I do remember that because that always stuck with me. Because he kept saying, "Man, you better not be doing all that extra shit. Just get your ass down and just run." I'm like, I said, all right. And then I'm taking my time, getting my feet all together, getting my steps right. And I look to the right. I smile at him. He just busts out laughing.
That's
So
so
I do
funny.
remember that.
So you're getting in the zone. You've had months to prepare for this moment. You go through this process. You're locked in, AD, and then for a split second you lose focus because Brian Cox is talking shit on the sidelines. Like, what are you doing, man?
Cause that's my guy. I just had to look at him and bust a smile like, you ain't gonna stop this process. And I looked at him and he just busted out laughing because we were joking about it the night before, man. So, ended up being a great day for me. I think I did about 35 on a 225. Ended up running like a 4.68. I could have ran faster, but my start time I popped up. But I really wasn't worried about like the cone drills and all that. That's just natural ability, just doing stuff. And they did have me do some linebacker drills, I think. But it was just everything. I just was like, just run through every drill full speed. Don't look fatigued. Don't look tired. Obviously, do great on the 40. I think that's what a lot of people wanted to see. Do great in a bench press. Show that the strength is real. Whatever you hear, And I'm a guy, and what I put on film was going to show. Everything else was just stuff that I did all my life. So it wasn't like nerve-wracking. I was just, let's hurry and get this done so I could be done with this and move on. So
Aaron, it's like people talk about the 40 and that's what like the headlines are. But like for D linemen, the thing that they really look at, it's just not advertised as much. It's not as sexy, is the 10 time, right? They want to know what the
yes,
10 time is, what the get off is. And so a lot of all of this stuff, Zach, is so technical and people don't understand the amount of work. He talks about going to train at Exos. Like when we sign a player after the season, we send them to a training facility to train. And
it's a
it's an
grind.
investment on the agent piece. I mean, it's tens of thousands of dollars. I
Wait,
mean,
wait, wait, wait. The agency is putting up tens of thousands of
It's an
dollars
investment.
for just
Yeah,
one
it's an investment.
player per player
yeah,
to go.
yeah.
And how long are we talking before the combine? Are you sending these guys out there? What does that investment look
Months.
like?
After their last, so let's just after their last their bowl games, so roughly
Yep.
January and February. Now, if a guy's not in a non-bowl team, then they can go in December after Thanksgiving for about 3 weeks because the places usually are closed between Christmas and New Year's. And when they're getting there, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. He's going to have a speed coach. He's
Yep.
going to have a strength coach. He's going to
Correct.
have a nutrition person. He's going to
Correct.
have an interview prep person, and he's going to have a position work person that works specifically on position work and all that. And so everything is so
Oh, hold
finely.
on. Don't forget you run Chuck Smith out there for a couple weeks just to prepare for the Senior Bowl with some pass rush stuff too. That was
That
just
was
the caviar on top, though. You know
Yeah,
what
that
I
was
mean?
that was the position coach. You gotta pay extra for him. He's gotta have a rental car when he's out there. He's gotta get
Yep.
around, and he's gotta have a place to stay, and he's not gonna stay with somebody else. And he's not going to In-N-Out in Arizona. He's gonna eat, prepared hot
Clean. Yep.
meals, lunch,
Correct.
dinner, protein shakes, supplements. He's gotta have massage, he's gotta have treatments, and all that type of stuff, yoga, whatever. Everything is very well planned and very well detailed, and it's all meant to peak at the end of February when they're here for the combine. And it's interesting because also Aaron said, like, I got to make sure I don't look fatigued. It's very easy to get fatigued because you're not training for football for 2 months.
Correct.
You're actually
Yeah.
training for a 40. And I don't know, Aaron, like if you were training for a 40, you may have run 2, maybe 3 40s, if that, the entire time
Yep.
you're there. You're there for your initial test. So they kind
Yep.
of get a baseline. And actually, maybe only one other one at the end. Other
I
than that, they do 10s and 20s and they're estimating
Correct.
what you're going to eat, but you're never
At the
so
training facility. They're never doing a
Yeah,
full
so
40.
we only ran 240, so you kinda estimate, and then you run like your 10s and your 20s, and you kinda like so you really don't know exactly what you're going. You kinda ideal until you run it there. That's why you get your phone after you run, you trying to figure out what everybody let you know, hey, this was this, hey, do this different because the coaches is watching and stuff. So
Yeah, well,
everything was lined up. It was smooth, man, for me. It was a
our speed coaches are on the phone with the player in
yeah.
between their first and second run,
Yeah.
telling them, "Hey, like Aaron said, you popped up too early, or keep your head
Mhm.
down," because there's a technique to it. I mean, there's an exact number of steps that they expect them to take. There's relaxing your face, not being tense. Things like that, and finishing on running through the 40, not stopping at 39 and letting up, like literally pretend it's a 45 yards. All of
Correct.
those little things, because the difference between a 4.3 and a 4.4 is like, and that's the difference. So imagine the smidget of error and what it means and what it does. And so there's a lot that goes into this stuff. And the average person doesn't see that. They just see the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, stuff that's on TV with the running and the jumping and all that stuff.
Can you quantify the progress, Todd, maybe when one of your guys made? And AD, when you first went to the training camp, I ran this in my 10 and I only did 20 reps. Obviously, I know you did more, but by the time you got to the combine, what was the growth? How much value did you see in what you did from the very, very beginning to the combine? How beneficial was that?
I think the first 40 I ran, the first day we ran it, to be honest with you, just to go out there and run it raw, I think my 40 time was probably like a 4.8, 4.9 or something like that.
Oh,
So
I'm
then
sure.
they clean it up and then they teach you like the right technique to get down, how to get off, how to explode through your right arm movements and things like that. And then over time, like you get more comfortable running your 10s, your 20s, and then you run another 40 and it get down to like a 4.7. And it's like you might mess around and run like a 4.6. If you really stay low, you might run a 4.5. I'm like, damn, I ain't never think I was just trying to go to the comeback and run a 4.7. I thought that was gonna be great enough. And then obviously through the weight room process, like you do a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of explosive stuff. So it's like they prepare you for everything, and it's like reps, right? It's the little things. Just continue to do the reps, working on the little muscles, firing your muscles on the bench press. You do different competition stuff when you seeing how many reps you do after you get done doing a full workout, burnout kind of thing. So I say that to say, because come combine time, it's like you prepare for it. You already did the homework. You already, did the studying. You already prepared yourself for this moment. Now you just got to go out there, be comfortable, and then translate that come combine time. So, it was great for me to have, obviously, Todd and the agency to put me in the best position to be prepared for my job interview. And that's the combine, right? Well, Senior Bowl first and then the combine. So when you got a great team around you that, making sure you eat the right food to get your weight. Hey, how much you want to weigh? How much should you be? I want to be at 280, 285. All right. This is how many meals you got to eat. This is what you got to eat every single day. Boom. That's it. I wasn't going to no extra partying on my days off. I was like strictly locked in training, right? Eating whatever they gave me, and I was going to eat that, right? Recovery process, whatever they had there for massages, for getting my body back right. I was doing it. From even they brung even people in to, size us to get us a suit. You go out there and then you just, you do your job interview, you do the certain meetings, you go in some of the meeting rooms, and it's like, okay, you're a little nervous, because you see some of these guys on TV, you still a little wet behind the ears, and when you talk ball, that's easy. I can talk, or they pull up some film of you. What were you thinking when you did this? And you just talk through it. And then sometimes you go in the meeting room, and they asking, something about the history, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I thought we were gonna come here and talk some football, right? So every meeting is different, but you as long as you prepared, you be yourself, then you go out there and just show out. Come combine time and the short and t-shirts, everything turned out the right way for you. That's it.
It's a very, very, very detailed process. Aaron and training for the 40 and training for the 5, 10, 5 and 3 cone and the bench and all these different things. It's very specific, right? It's very detailed. And he's out there training for the 45, 10, 5, 3 cone, all these different drills. And you got to think about the warm up. Every time he's out there, they're putting him through the drills but when he gets here, no coaches are allowed on the field. So now he's got to train and do his own warm up himself. And they give him a little card so he knows what to be doing because it's the repetition. And he needs to know this is how I do my hamstrings and this is how I do this. And this is how many minutes I have. And it's down to the second kind of like, so he knows exactly what his warm up is because you don't want to just go out there and randomly stretch or start running too much. And then all of a sudden you're a little winded for your 40. So everything is really specific when it comes to all that and like the food and like, he's talking about the food and what to eat and not to eat too much. That's another thing because we want him at a certain weight. And if he's at the Senior Bowl, an undersized guy like Aaron was labeled, we want him weighing a certain thing at the Senior Bowl. You want that weight to be consistent or more at combine and then consistent or more at the pro day all 3 times to show these teams he not only can put that weight on, he can keep that weight and or add weight over a long period of time versus it being a one-off of, oh yeah, we put this weight on and then back for pro, combine, dropped another whatever, and then he can't hold it for pro day. Like you're showing that he can do it over multiple months. And that's one thing that these teams also want to see is if a guy needs to add weight or can he keep weight off depending on, each guy's situation. But so much so that, when Aaron gets here or when any player gets here, like we're meeting them at the airport when they come down the escalator and baggage claim. I mean, they got a backpack full of snacks ready for them and a empty jug for water to hydrate them because when they're here, it's this process is like what 4 days, and the 4th day you're supposed to go perform, but the other 3 days and 4 nights or whatever are miserable. They're up at 5
Yeah,
a.m.
it is.
For a drug test. They're up. Their interviews don't end till 11 o'clock at night at a minimum, and we'll get into what happens at 11 o'clock at night. But then they're at the hospital doing X-rays and MRIs on every inch of their body. Now, if they've had a pre-existing injury, the teams will, when they show up for day 1, they'll be sent to the hospital to go get X-rays and MRIs on any injury they've had in the past. Like I missed a game, he's had a surgery in the past. Like that's a given. The next day, the day 2, they have ortho exams. So they're going into 4 or 5 different rooms with orthopedic doctors from different teams, and they'll put the arms out and push down and resist. And if they sense either a grimace in a guy's face or the right arm is a little weaker than the left arm, they order more MRIs on the spot, even though he's never missed a game for it or whatever, and they send him to go get more stuff. And so a lot of that stuff happens too behind the scenes. So all these things are happening days leading up to, forget the months leading up to it as well as when they're here. And then we'll get into, I know you want to ask me about what happens late at night. And we can talk about that too, but just a lot of detail and a lot of stuff that goes into all of this. Is pretty intense.
Are they NFL doctors, Todd, to keep it impartial?
Yeah, no, it's team doctors,
Team
specific.
doctors.
Yeah, and medical matters because every team will grade guys different medically, um, than another team. So certain guys have, more, I guess, a leniency on a grade. Like some guys might not, and a lot of that could be, like just like any of us who go to a regular doctor, right? You want a second opinion. Not all doctors agree on everything, right? So teams are wanting to know, is this guy a medical reject? Like he's off our board? Is this guy just downgraded, meaning he's got an injury that is going to be something that is fine. We're just going to have to manage the shit out of it,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
he's going to have to miss practice. Or is he a guy who's going to be a guy who we're going to manage, but he's not even a second contract guy? He'll be fine for 3 or 4 years, but he's not going to be a second contract guy. Well, those situations hold different grades for different teams because you don't necessarily want to draft a guy super high if he's not a guy who medically can be a second contract guy because you're trying to build through the draft. You want to have a guy that's going to be there for several years. So all of these different ways teams look at the medical, forget the running and jumping and interviews and position work and the history of their film, the freshman, sophomore, junior year, senior year, whatever it is. There's all this other piece that gets into it as well.
So I want to clarify something. So you said they're team doctors. So AD, when you went in, are there 32, Todd? Are 32 team doctors looking at AD? And is one doctor, a team doctor, hey, I want to look his shoulder. And let's say they get something with the shoulder, then do they share that information with everybody else? Do they keep it internal? So you could have 32 team doctors for every single player looking at the guy?
So when I forgot about that. I forgot that long process. I do remember I had a knee scope my junior year in college, right? And I missed one game. I tried to play that game, but so they wanted to check my knee, right? And I remember they will, they grab your knee, they moving it, they yanking on it. Then another doctor come, then another doctor want to get another doctor. I'm like, God, please, I'm okay, but it's like multiple. It's making sure it's an investment, right? You want to make sure whoever you invest in your dollars and bring it to your team that they're able to be durable, able to play. So it is a lot. I forgot about that, Todd. See, it's you there every year. See, it's like it's fresh in
Oh,
your mind, but
I hear the guys talk about like the knee, like it wasn't bothering them, but by the time the damn doctors got done pulling and pushing
all
on
that
it, like
yeah, because they like they trying to move your joints and like making sure that it's sturdy, but it's like they using some force with it, and then they like you have 3 doctors come, and then another doctor just want to do another check on it, like hey, and then they pulling on it doing something different, So it is a
all these
long
doc
process.
all these doctors, they have a job, right? And their
Yeah,
job is to
facts.
report back to their team. So they want to make sure they get their hands on a guy because they trust themselves to know whether they think the stability of X, Y, and Z is good or not. So I mean, yeah, and then then they look at all these X-rays and MRIs and they get these grades. And so like in a I don't know, let's say 3 weeks or so in a month, like I'm calling teams trying to get the medicals back on my guys because what I don't want to have happen is if you don't have the relationships or you don't have the knowledge or you don't have the intel and you don't know that your guy is a medical reject or he's off the boards, it's going to be a really lousy draft weekend because your guy's expected to go here and then he either doesn't go or he drops significantly. If you're not aware that there was a medical issue and you don't prepare and manage expectations for the player and their family, that's a problem.
So you want to be proactive. You want to get, if your guy maybe was training, maybe tweaked a little bit of hammy, he's not 100%. You want to be proactive with him and the doctors?
Hammy, I could is a nothing thing, right? But like if it's a significant thing, yes. And the other thing is you might talk to one team who thinks, no, we're good. There are questions on this, and another team has something bad. I might want to go get my guy, have an independent doctor, do something on that specific thing, get a letter on it, whatever I got to do to try to make sure that you want your pool of opportunity to be 32 teams, not 16 or not 18 or not 22. You want to be on every team's board in a draftable grade, not getting knocked. And again, medical doesn't mean you don't get drafted. You could be a medical reject and off a board. You could just be downgraded on a guy and they say, look, we love him. He's a first round grade, but we wouldn't take him till the 3rd because of the medical. And look, I've had guys have medical where they have degenerative stuff on their knee and they say he, didn't get drafted. Meanwhile, a guy played 9 years and had multiple contracts. So again, it's just, they're very conservative and every team is completely different. I mean, no
Mhm.
different than teams are different on character, right? Some teams don't care and like you can have off the field issues and whatever, and they just turn a blind eye and they just go with the talent or they think they can they want it, they always talent trumps. So they always kind of like forget the bad part and look at the good part and and put their emphasis there. And then there's other teams who just be like, yeah, that guy doesn't fit our culture and we're not even messing with it. And he's a guy who's off their board. So it's not just the medical, it's the character as well.
Speaking of character, I was visiting with Ian Cunningham, the new general manager for the Falcons this morning. And we were talking about, in AD, when you were playing, the question was, how would guys handle off the field with money? A bag, they never had it before in college. How would they react? That was a big question when you were kind of growing up through this process. Todd, you know how they would handle that. Now, all these kids have bags. They have money.
Yeah.
So the question is, right, do they love the game? That's what everybody wants to find out.
Yeah.
AD, how do you think you can transcend, if you were advising that you love the game? And Todd, what are you talking about stressing to your guys during the speed dating process here in Indy when they're going to be in front of all 32 teams? They got the money. Now it's, do you love the game?
I think just when you talking to a team, you can naturally just figure out who love football and who don't, right? When you start talking ball, talking different experiences of the game, your face should light up a certain type of way, right? It should be a certain type of mindset you should have. Whatever your goals is, you should be like, this is what I want to accomplish. This is my mindset. And you be able to share that. And in my opinion, that's what I will kind of figure out who love the game. Because a lot of guys might play the game for different reasons, right? And it'll show eventually.
It's true. I mean, passion in the interview process is something that's important, right? That's what these teams are looking at. Does he get passion? Is he passionate when he's talking ball? Just like Aaron said, do his eyes light up? But you got to remember, a lot of the questions these teams are asking, they know the answer. They've done their homework. They are at these schools. When Aaron was at Pitt, these scouts all season long are coming to practices, watching practices. They come to games. They're talking to his position coaches. They're talking to the head coaches. They're talking to the strength coaches. They're talking to coaches that left Pitt that are at another school about Aaron. They're talking to everybody. So they know, in terms of loving football, that strength coach is not going to be, if a guy he's not a worker, he doesn't love the gym, he's not in there early, doesn't stay late, he's cutting corners. You see it. They come, they watch their practice habits. They can see guys and their energy at practice, and they can see leadership skills. They can see, does a guy take off? So a lot of these answers they figure out on their own just by spending time and doing the homework. They're not going to sit there and just rely on.
So do you think the process though is locking guys in or crossing them off?
I think it's both. I think it's verifying things. It's reconfirming things. Now, look, I had a guy last year. Well, I'm not actually, I wouldn't even get what year it was. I had a guy who, one team, I think I told you guys this, he was off the board on a team, and they told me not to recruit him. But through this process, they spent time with him. And then, ironically, that one team was the one that actually drafted him. And it was because they judged the book by its cover early on, which was all the reports that they had gotten, all the investigative reports on him going to different schools and having girls with different moms and not loving football and taking plays off and all that. But we had a plan to reverse that during this draft process. We had a 4-month process that you can try to reverse that and try to show instead of just tell, because I think telling is BS. Like, if I'm a GM, I'm sitting here going, you can tell me whatever you want. You're just telling me what I want to hear. That's not, like, who's not going to say great things about themselves, or who's not going to act like they don't love football when you know what the test is.
It's $1 million in stake.
Right,
Millions of
100%.
dollars. Yeah.
You got to try to read between the lines what these guys are doing and try to understand history-wise what it's all about. So to me, it's verifying. It's also digging a little bit deeper and getting some questions answered that they just want to know and hear directly from them and put them on the line. And Aaron said he went into some of these interviews. They're only like 18 minutes, the interviews. Now, they have formals and informals. Formals are 18 minutes, set schedules, and then there's an informal window where teams can just grab you, and there's hours of that too. But they go into these formal interviews, and they're going to have specific questions. And it's amazing. They will also have specific film cut-ups of Aaron. Some teams will spend no time on background. We don't need us. We know your background. I'm not worried about that. We want to know football. Now, a lot of times, one thing you hear consistently they'll do is they'll try to teach their defense, okay? And they'll go through it and do whatever it is, spend 3 minutes on it. Then they'll start talking to Aaron about Pittsburgh football and all this different kind of stuff, and they'll have clips of Aaron. Boom, tell us here. And they want to know, these are bad plays. Is he going to blame the guy next to him? Is he blaming the defensive scheme? Is he blaming a coach, or is he having accountability, taking it on his own? These teams don't want you pointing fingers and blaming. They want you to own it, right? And then they have good clips, right? And then guess what happens at minute 15? They ask you about what they taught you in the first 3 minutes, and they say, teach me back that. And they want to know what he retained, because they're trying to learn in a quick window what kind of style this guy has in terms of learning ability because you come into the NFL, sometimes it's a little bit more complicated. I mean, Aaron talks about watching film all the time. I mean, there's a lot to go into it, and if you can
But just install
grasp
alone, it's not easy. You putting installs, different install every single day, definitely around camp time. So you got to be able to pick up, grab concepts, and be able to translate that on the grass, right? So
and
So you
they'll put you on the board in those rooms too, and they'll say, "Tell us, drop your favorite defensive play. What's your favorite thing? You know, what's the down and distance? You know, what is your favorite pass rush thing you do here?" And some guys will draw what just themselves and the O line. Some will draw the D line, the corners, the linebackers, the say. That's a guy who has a lot more understanding of not just what they do, but what everybody does. And those little things are what separate one guy from the next. And so, from an agent perspective, you're trying to share that with your guys and trying to teach them that because you're trying to separate your guy from the next. And these are the little things that you got to do to focus on. So these guys are set up for the as much success as you can have.
I know it was a minute ago, AD, when you were in the room with all those teams. Do you remember one question that might have stumped you? Was there a moment that you had to pause and kind of get out of a corner? Or were you just so prepared of what they were asking
I
in big
think
picture stuff?
I think they asked some history questions. I don't know exactly what, but it was some stuff that they asked me, and I ain't know the answer to. And I was like, damn, my forehead started sweating. I started trying to I'm like, shit, I wasn't expecting. Shit, I ain't study for this. But it was more stuff like that. But everything else was pretty much, normal stuff, family stuff, football stuff. But I did go into a couple rooms where they asked some questions and I ain't know the answer to when they talking about history and certain stuff. I'm like, I don't know,
I'm just going to
coach.
get to the quarterback. I don't care who
Yeah,
was,
you know what I'm saying?
the
I don't know,
CEO of
coach.
Nike. We're good.
Aaron, when I recruited Aaron, I talked about this before. Like I sat on a bar stool and there was these spotlights about the little, and they were just
In
like
my apartment.
eating me up. I felt like I was on stage, and of course, everything I said, Aaron would laugh. He still does. It's like amazing. I have like the biggest ego boost when I get done with him. But it's the same thing for you though when you go into these rooms at the stadium, and now they're at the stadium. I don't know what they were when they were with you. They were in suites, and you go into a room and you're sitting in a chair up front, and there could be
Correct.
6, 8, 10, 12 people in there. You see a
All in the
head
back, and
coach.
then some of them just got the fan right there, and it's like all dark and like this feel like there's just the spotlights on you, and there's a bunch of coaches around, some asking questions, some might throw a question over there, and you talking, and then you might be watching film, and you're explaining what you was doing, and you might have a bad play on there. What made you do this? Well, this is what I was trying to do, coach. I was trying to backdoor this to make the play, but I just got cut out my gap. That was on me, right? So, it's a lot. I did have a couple. I think it was Arizona that had me on the board, right? And this is, it was a couple teams that was trying to possibly flirting with the idea of me playing like an outside linebacker stand-up position, which I'm like, that's not what I do. I could do it because I'm an athlete, right? But, and then we go on the board, we talking X's and O's, or he draw up, what Todd was saying, he draw up a defense, boom, boom, he explained it to me. He erased the board and the marker out to me. Then you got to just redo it. I'm like, all right, shit, all right, boom. Okay, so what you got to do here? All right, so if you got to drop out, who you covering? You covering one or two? And so it's like a whole process. So they want to see how fast you can pick up concepts, how fast you can pick up, install, and then translate it right back to them like that. Because in the NFL, during camp, there's different installs every single day. So you learn one, as soon as you get it on the board, boom. An hour later, you on the grass walking through it, and then an hour after that, 2 hours later, you on the grass and you going full speeds. To be able to pick up the playbook is like you got to be able to grab the playbook and be able to translate it fast, because if not, you're gonna get left behind because it's a different install. It's something new every day, and then you might think you understand something. We might change up maybe the D quarter might. I ain't like how I looked on at practice that day, so we're gonna tweak that, tweak this. So it's a lot of moving pieces to it that you don't understand and see, but.
They also have, people don't understand this, Aaron. Not only do you have coaches and coordinators and GMs in that room listening to your interviews and all that stuff, some teams will put a team psychologist in there too. And when the player leaves, they'll talk about, and they'll ask the psychologist, was he being honest? Especially if they were asking sort of character issue questions.
Mm-hmm.
Was he being truthful? Was he being, sincere and genuine? And these team psychologists or whatever give their assessment and opinion just from body language, just from
That's
eye
crazy.
contact. Like, this is Aaron said it earlier. They're trying to protect their investment, right? These guys'
Yes.
jobs are on the line. They're going to be paying a bunch of money. Like a big investment to a regular person is to go buy a car, to buy a house, right? You don't just look at the house on the outside and go, I like how it looks. No, you get an inspector who comes in and checks every damn thing there is,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at everything, and you want to make sure it's fixed before you get it because you don't want to buy a dud, right? Well, it's the same kind of thing. They don't want to buy a dud, and you're buying a human being here, which is hard. because that's why there's no recipe with the draft, right? Because they got them right, they get them wrong. You just don't know because does their game translate from college to the pros? Does their
Correct.
you know, do they get a bunch of money and they shut it down, or do they
Hmm.
get a bunch of money and that just gets them even going more because they want more money? Do they play with a chip on their shoulder? What's their off the field life at home? How's that going to affect their work life at the facility? Are they going to be a guy who comes in early, stays late? How is he going to play? What's his injury history? What's his health? What's his
Yep.
ability to learn? They got to look at all of this type of stuff, and so they're going to kick the tires and go deep on this stuff before they go select a guy because they want to at least give themselves out of the gate the best chance in their view of having a guy be successful because their
It's a
job's on the
business.
line.
It's a
Anytime you see
business.
a GM getting fired or a head coach, they talk about, well, they drafted this guy and this was a mistake. They paid this guy all this money, that all the mistakes, right? And so they want to try to eliminate as much as that as they can. And so these teams, I call it analysis paralysis. They
For
overanalyze,
sure.
but
Everything.
I get why, and they're trying to figure out what works.
When it comes to the moment, AD, you're there in front of an empty stadium that holds 70,000 people. It's silent. There's maybe 100 people in there at the time because they weren't allowed fans in there. You've worked so hard for this moment. You saw this moment on TV growing up as a kid,
Yep.
and
Correct.
now you're there. Forget the Brian Cox thing, but did you get nervous at all? Was it did the process slow down in your head that you've worked so hard for this moment? Now the spotlight, the attention's on you for 4 or 5 seconds to define in many people's eyes what Aaron Donald's all about?
So you prepare, but nerve is normal. You're gonna have nerves. You're gonna have them butterflies because you want to perform. You want to do good, right? You want to just like if when I played football, I was nervous before every game until you get that first play out and you're like, "Ah, I'm good, right? It's just you gotta get the jitters out. So you're gonna be nervous. You got to think you got GMs in the stands. Coach, you might look and see a coach that you grew up watching. It's like, what the? All right, let's lock in. It's just we in shorts and t-shirt. You just out here doing cone drills. Ain't no one-on-ones, ain't no helmet and shoulder. It's just football drills, right? So once you get that out your system, I was more nervous for the 40-yard dash than anything 'cause I wanted to see what I was going to run. I really didn't know what I was going to run. So once I got the first one under my belt and I got my text and kind of got the around the 40 time I was at, I'm like, okay, we good. I kind of surpassed my mindset thinking 4.7. I think I was running 4.6 world already. So I'm like, all right, we good. Like, so once you get that out and then you just out there, you with other guys, you joking around with the other guys, you kind of get comfortable, you kind of block everything out that's around you, just like playing football. Then you just in the moment is just doing whatever you got to do, the cone drill, right? Locked in, finishing every drill, laughing, fist pumping with the guy because you know you killing it, you feeling good, so you in your element now. So you going. I started off with the butterflies for sure. It's a big stage, a big opportunity, right? And then went from for me was obviously I felt like I was a first round draft pick, but it was still conversations like maybe he'd be a early second round guy. Then you
What
run
a
a four
joke!
six.
What a
Then you run
joke!
a 4.6, and they're like, okay, maybe this guy can probably go in the first round. So you do what you got to do, and you just keep I guess checking off all the boxes. They want to see what you can do. That's it, and then everything play out for itself. So
So here they are. We've talked about this maybe on a previous episode, Todd. But went out to dinner with you one year. We were hanging out, and you're like, "I got to go." I'm like, "Dude, it's 10:30. Where are you going?" He's like, "I got to see Jahmyr Gibbs." I'm like, "What could Jahmyr Gibbs possibly do at 10:30 at night?" And there you are here in one of the hotels working with him and a trainer on those first 1 or 2 steps. And then what happened with Gibbs in the combine when he ran the 40?
Well, time out. When you say working with, I want to make sure I'm clear. I am not doing anything with the 40.
Yeah.
If
just
that was
You
supporting.
were support. You were there rooting him
I
on.
was no, I was there for support, and I was there to keep his weight up, having to order food late at night to make sure because he had gone
You
all
got to take
day
that
not
water.
eating.
Don't water.
Yeah, I
You got
mean,
to have that
water.
gallon with you.
Oh, carry the water and, drink that water early on before you weigh in, and then
Yep.
obviously you pee it out later so you can run lighter. So everyone does those types of tricks, but, yeah, what happens is, the players are pretty much, they stay at a hotel, it's locked down. No one can get in there but players and NFL personnel, and they have police there and the whole thing. But there's a hotel. The downtown Indianapolis is like it's like all hotels connected by a
Sitting across the
convention center.
street,
So
yeah.
once you've come enough, you realize that you never have to go out. I never go outside. I cut through everywhere because it's so cold. I always cut through to get to every hotel. But I get back to the hotel. We always have a place set up, right, like a minute and a half, 2 minute walk from the player hotel,
Yep.
where it's like a ballroom set up with massage people and all the PT people. and a bench, and then our 40 coaches there to work on the speed and get them going and get, they might get some cupping, they might get some needling, they might get some stretching, but they get in a light sweat because you got to realize they taper down before they come here. And so they're not doing much the week before. And then they get here, and then for 4 days or so, they're not doing anything in terms of movement type stuff. So we need them to continue to do the movement stuff because the last day they're here is the biggest movement day of their life. And so at 11 o'clock is when they break for interviews. And I had to actually do it last night. Although I will say now that as the years go on, I get more tired out of like 11 o'clock. I don't know if I'm going to make it. But they get over there and you're just there for moral support. First, you're going to hear about all their interviews and how they did, and you're sharing feedback because if you're a good agent, you know their schedule, you know what teams they met with, and you have good relationships with GMs who will give you feedback on how they did on their interviews. If you're a really good agent, you're getting real time feedback and after maybe one or two interviews, and then you're sharing that on the 2-minute walk that he has to the next interview. So if he made a mistake, he doesn't carry that same mistake in the next 10 interviews, and then you can't do anything about it. But you're rectifying that right away. But I'm there at night, yes, watching him get his light sweat in and working on his 40 starts, and, getting some food and getting worked on. And then ideally, he gets over there around 11:15, 11:20. And ideally, you're getting him out of there around 12:30 or so, 12:45 to go back to his hotel to go to sleep. And then I'm walking back, or taking an Uber back or whatever to my hotel to go to bed and hopefully sneaking by the lobby bar that's packed with scouts and
Everybody
everyone.
wanting a little of your time. But
Not
is he one of those stories that you tell? Because he was projected, I'm reading right now, late first round, maybe a second round pick. He runs a 4.36 and goes 12th overall. Do you think that performance with him is an example of what the combine can do in terms of the perception of a player and get him? I mean, I think he went higher than he did because based on the draft combine, no?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think the combine and the mocks and the projections are for the fans. And when they say guys rising, a guy's falling, these teams know where a guy is. I mean, all you got to do is turn on the Alabama film. Anytime they hand that ball, the kid the ball, I mean, the smallest hole there was, the kid was boom, gone like a rocket ship, right? So I think it just verified what they already knew. I mean, I think there are some guys that maybe there's another thing scouts always say. A guy might run fast at the combine, but he doesn't play fast.
Correct.
And so there's two different things. Are
Yeah.
you an underwear Olympics sort of guy who's just going to run and jump well, but when you play, you're not playing fast because
It
your
don't
instincts aren't
translate.
good, your IQ
Yep.
on the field isn't right, and so that matters in how they look at things. I think a guy like Gibbs confirmed what they already knew. I mean, no different than Aaron Donald. Everybody confirmed what they already knew. I think it does build some media hype and that type of stuff, which is great from the branding and the marketing and the trading card deals and the shoe deals, wanting to get these guys, and that always helps. And look, to a degree, sure, PR is always a big thing when a guy gets drafted. If the media was hyping it and Detroit drafts Jahmyr Gibbs, yeah, they're going to be more jazzed up about it because the media has been hyping the guy up. I think he got devalued just in general, Zach, because of the running back position. Isn't typically something that goes high. But I had grades that he was going in the first. I didn't know exactly where until it started getting closer and closer. Then I started having a better idea that it was going to be there. And heck, it could have very been easily that he even went ahead of Bijan that year. But the way things work in trades and all that stuff, it kind of worked the way it did. But I can tell you this, it can go the other way, though. If you come here and your guy who is a corner and you go and run a 4.65 and you were a projected one coming in, I can assure you, you're not going in the first round because that time will kill you. And so you have to be smart as an agent also strategically of running your guys, not running your guys and all that type of stuff.
So is that just because you had 2 months to get ready for it and you kind of failed on the biggest stage? Because if you were projected, as you said, a first round pick, AD, and all of a sudden you had one bad day, well, what about the film? Because AD, it seems like you are always a film guy. This is what I did. I could care less that I run or I bench. Look at the freaking tape. That's who I represent.
These drills are set up to expose a player. The position drills are set up to see, does he have tight hips in terms of his rotation
That's
stuff.
what they want to say. How athletic you is, how you move, how you redirect, how you flip your hips, how you get in and out of your break. All that they want to see your athletic ability now. That's what you get to see in shorts and t-shirt now.
They want to see, does it match up to the film? And
correct.
And they might see a guy who's a projected first round corner because he's, physical and whatever, but they do have speed questions on the guy, right? And then he comes there and he it's not about that he didn't prepare. He just might not be a fast guy. Doesn't mean he's not going to have success in the league. He just might not be. But some teams are going to be scared off by that because when you look at who they're guarding and they're running 4 3s and 4 4s, and you got a guy who's
Run right
running
by
4
you.
6,
Yeah.
one little hesitation, that guy's you only need this.
Ain't no press coverage. Ain't no press coverage. You're going to get by you, and you ain't catching that guy. You back off
No.
10 yards.
Exactly right. So those things, that's where they are kind of verifying things. And so I don't know that necessarily a guy goes up or down or whatever, but I don't think it helps them. I think the guy can go down if their
Yeah.
grade is not. I'm sorry, their times don't match to what it should be. Now, if a guy benches a certain amount versus not, I mean, I don't know how that's going
Right.
to. I don't think a GM sitting there on draft day going, oh, his bench is 19, this guy's is 21, let's take him. I
No.
don't think that's going to be it. But
Hey, did you know that the Rams had an inkling rather of drafting you? Did you meet with them during the process? Did you have any idea that you were kind of their guy when you were going through the process?
So I only met with 2 teams after the combine and everything. I ain't have no extra workouts. I didn't have to do none of that. I just had the combine and my pro day. But I did meet with the St. Louis Rams. I did go there, met with Coach Wolf, and he did tell me this is before, the St. Louis Rams wasn't good, so I didn't really know much about them. And then I started to do my little homework. I'm like, this D-line's already, they loaded on D-line. Robert Quinn, Chris Long, Michael Brock, all these first-round picks. But Mike Wolf did tell me, he was like, if you there at 13, we're getting you. I'm like, he's just talking. I remember he bust open. I'm meeting, and then inside the a meeting room, like Celeste, Coach Fish, and Wolf just busted the door open. Hey, this is Aaron Donald. This is going to be our 13th pick. And I remember just seeing Johnny Manziel in underwear, no shirt on, and they just doing their homework on it. And they probably like, why the hell would you bring him in our war room? But I did meet with them. He did say he was going to get me at 13. I didn't think so. And I met with Dallas. I thought I would go to Dallas at 16. I did a lot of talking to like Chicago. I forget what Chicago was at. I think 14, I believe, or something like that. But I don't know. But I did. They did tell me that if I was at 13, it was going to get me. I didn't think so. I thought I was going to be more of a later first round pick. So I thought I would go to Dallas at 16. I did think that, but everything played out how it was supposed to play out. I thought I'd go to Detroit too at 10. I know that was a possibility. I know Chicago was a possibility. I know St. Louis Rams was a possibility. I knew Dallas was a possibility. You just never know. It's just all about all the stuff you're hearing right through media and TV. He gonna go here. This would be a great fit for him. So you kind of like trying to put everything together. Like, where is it gonna be? So you just don't know until you know, right? So, Todd, do you remember like you deal with a million people? My process, right? Do you remember even talking to any team that was like, if we want this guy or anything like that, or they never told you nothing like that? If you remember at all.
they don't know. What I do remember is having repeated conversations about being undersized.
Yeah.
And it used to drive me crazy because I'm
What
like,
were they
well,
saying though? I want to know what were they
I don't
saying?
remember. I don't remember specifics, but I had it before you with a guy with Ernie Sims who was undersized, and I remember Ernie Sims is a really undersized linebacker out of Florida State, and I think he ended up going like 10 or whatever. But I remember Ernie saying, "Really?" He goes, "I put my cleats on. I'm the same size as I need to be, and I'll knock your head off," kind of thing. And it's like I remember like talking to teams repeatedly. Again, they don't really want to hear what I have to say or care what I say because I'm biased, obviously. So I just remember that argument and that consistent media coverage about an undersized guy. Oh, but he's so talented at Pitt and his production is so high.
Yeah.
And it used to I remember it used to frustrate me. I can't remember specifically any good or bad or indifferent or whatever it was, but yeah, I'm
Well, you
glad
said you're talking to teams, but what's your week look like? I mean, how many of the 32 teams are you talking? What are those conversations about? And is it about current guys, future guys? I know your schedule's loaded, but educate the audience, Todd, on what the combine looks for somebody who's not participating in any of the drills.
Yeah, it's a lot of meetings with a lot of teams. And we've got NFL free agency starts not next week after the combine, but the following week free agency starts. So what you're talking to teams and meeting with teams about are, for the most part, free agency. Your current players, you might have a guy on their roster. You might be talking about doing an extension with that guy. They might be trying to do a pay cut. They might be talking about telling you that they might be cutting your guy. We're talking about what things they're interested in, what needs, what positions they're going to be looking at in free agency. Are they going to be active players in free agency? You do talk a little bit about your draft guys. A lot of what you're going to get is they'll give you some feedback, they'll give you some grades, but generally you get a lot of good feedback in terms of, oh, you know what, I interviewed him last night. He did a really good job, or he did this, and so you're able to get some more feedback on your guys that you can share with your rookies. And everyone talks about tampering and stuff, and technically it's illegal for any team meeting that you're having a meeting. If I'm meeting with the Bears, it's illegal for them to be talking to me about my guy that's under contract on the Giants. That's illegal for them to do. Does it go on? Yeah, probably. I would assume it does. I'm not going to get into whether it does or doesn't, but the reality is it's not supposed to go on. But there's a lot of moving and shaking and a lot of information and a lot of misinformation that's going out during this time. You could also find out about a guy like, a team might be looking to move on from your guy or trying to trade your guy. And then you're using this time to try to gauge his market. You're trying to let teams know ahead of time, because if I'm going to get a guy that's getting cut, I don't want to have him get cut once free agency starts. I want him cut today, because I want to get a jump start on all the other guys that are under contract and won't get officially released or won't get available to all the other teams until the tampering window opens, 48 hours before free agency starts. I might have a 10-day jump start if I get a guy who's going to get released now, and now I can start talking to teams about doing a deal, and they
Yeah.
don't have to wait. And then maybe the bidding war doesn't get crazy, or whatever it is. So you're having a lot of conversations. You're trying to get a lot of different information, and we're a very big agency and a very powerful group. So we get a lot of information amongst each other, and we share all that type of stuff to see what overlaps, and to try to see what is most beneficial for our players. And at the end of the day, all you're trying to do is get the best and do the best for your players. You might have a player, by the way, on the roster that's unhappy, whether he's not there, they're not using him right, or whether we don't like the play time, or whether there was some other issue. This is your time to sit down face to face with these clubs and have those conversations about your guys and be able to share back with your guys. So you're doing a lot of digging and a lot of work to make sure that everything you need to accomplish is. I come in with a list of goals, and I
Uh-huh.
want to leave the week, having them all my questions answered and goals reached.
I know that the Falcons worked something out with Kirk Cousins, so they spread some cap money over 2 years, and I asked somebody, why did they do that? And it's because they were gonna let the agent know that they were going to release him, and they made that public. Ian Cunningham said, "We're gonna release him," so it goes to your point, now the agency has an idea to move forward with whatever happens for Kirk Cousins. Also, your agency represents Kyle Pitts, and they tagged him. But educate me, Todd, if you can, on the different types of tags, because I think the people out think there's just one tag, and there's an exclusive tag and a non-exclusive tag. And to me, all I know is that if you're tagged, I know maybe AD, you went through this, that it's the average of the top 5 salaries, so you're locked in. But it's just 1 year?
Yeah, it's just the franchise tag. The other tag, forgetting exclusive and non-exclusive, but there's a franchise tag, and then there's also a transition tag. And one is the top 5 highest paid average at the position. The other one is top 10. And it gives someone a chance to, the transition one, he can go out there and potentially get another opportunity from somewhere else. Franchise tag, you're stuck where you are, but basically it's really a placeholder. Okay. Because when a guy, so to use your example, if they're tagging Kyle Pitts, they put the tag on by the deadline. So now instead of him being a free agent here, March, 15th or whatever the date is, his rights are held by the Falcons. It, he will either he has a chance to get a long-term deal done between now when he gets tagged and July 15th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So he can get a deal done all off season. However, if they do not come to an agreement on a long-term deal, then he has to play under that 1 year number for the year. And people are like, oh, well, he's top 5 highest paid. Like, that's a great number. If you're good enough to get tagged, you want a long-term deal. Because if you have a long-term deal, you have multiple years that are going to be locked in and guaranteed. If you're a tagged guy and you only get that 1 year, sure, that 1 year salary is a big number for whatever that position is. But if you have a down year or you get hurt, your next year isn't going to look real good. And now you didn't get that multiple years of, getting your long-term deal stuck and locked in. So the other thing is for the,
But most of the time when they tagging somebody, is it like a prove yourself again type of tag? When they
I
tagging
mean,
somebody, like you
technically,
gotta prove that you want this big contract, why we should pay you this big contract. Show
I
us
mean,
this year.
they could do it that way. They could, like, they're supposed to have a good faith negotiation, and the tag is it's supposed to be a resort of the team to be able to keep them instead of losing them. And versus, you know what, we don't know if we love the guy or don't love the guy. He needs to prove us. We'll tag him. Do teams do that? Maybe. then let's give him another year and see what he is in our system and if he behaves, if he's a good guy, bad guy, whatever it
Yeah.
is, if he's a good player, bad guy, if he recovered from the injury the way we think he is, if he's gonna whatever it is, buy into the new system, and if there's a new coach, who knows what it is. It gives the team another thing. But ideally, they're gonna work out a long-term deal. Now, the negative for the team side is it's a big number. And if you were to do a long-term deal, to your point earlier on spreading money out, let's just use the number $20 million. If your $20 million number for a tag, 20 million, 100% counts against the cap in that year. So you're eating $20 million out of your cap space in that year. If you gave a guy a long-term deal, and let's just say again, you can give him 40 million guaranteed. And let's just say it was a 5-year deal. That 40 million signing bonus, let's say the minimum salary was year one. So let's just pretend for even math, it's $1 million and your signing bonus was 40 million. You could divide that 40 for cap purposes, prorate it over the 5 years. 40 divided by 5 is 8, counts against the cap in that current year, plus the 1 million of the salary. Now you're at 9 million. So I just gave a guy a long-term deal, and instead of getting 20 million against my cap, I'm at 9. Right. I just saved 11 million in cap dollars. So that's why the long-term deal is better for the team side as well. I mean, they can obviously absorb it if they had to, but if they were able to work out a long-term deal, it frees up dollars for them, which allows them to go fill other needs and voids that they might want to go do in free agency or spend more money to extend their existing guys or whatever it may be. So that's kind of how it works, but you don't really see a transition tag often. It's more the franchise tag. And that's kind of how that works in a nutshell without getting too.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating because when you're having these conversations, are you kind of getting a pulse, Todd, of what the market could be? Where you'll say you go with the Baltimore Ravens and they say, hey, the running back market is, 8 to 12 million. And then you go to the Giants and they say, hey, we think the running back market is 10 to 15. Are you trying to gauge the overall bubble with different teams for certain positions?
Yeah, you do. You always are listening to what guys are. And you also have trusted friends and relationships of certain cap guys on certain teams, and you want to get their feel. They might not even be in that market for that player or that position, but they still project and they're curious what it's going to be. And so you want to get as much information as you can and see if it matches up to what you think it's going to be and that type of stuff. So yeah, again, that's why I said earlier, it's a lot of information passing, a lot of gathering stuff, a lot of communication, and it's it's kind of like our convention, if you will, with all the who's who of everything, just to try to get FaceTime and get information about the players and all that stuff and what information is out there. Sometimes you hear because there's agents out there that will, put out what they want their player wants and what they're asking for. Sometimes it's good to get that too. If you're a smart agent and you know how to use this information, which I do, uh, and I use the shit out of this information, and it's extremely helpful to benefit my guys. You just got to know
what was your first year at the combine?
I'm 2000 or 2001.
So you've been here almost a quarter century coming to Indy.
You don't have to say
sorry. Yeah, we're old, brother. We're old. I'm curious. How has it changed? Like, what is the biggest change? What year one with Todd France when you were an agent? Were you going to having the same conversations as that access to the team's grown as you've grown? What has this process been like from the outside?
Well, yeah. In the beginning, I don't know that I knew what I was really doing. I didn't have the relationships that I've had with the guys. Sure. I've been doing so many deals over so many years with these guys. We've had, all sorts of things go down. We've dealt with each other. We've done it, together, right? We've dealt with guys where we've, cheered, where guys done well for them, big contracts. We've dealt with guys that got hurt. We've dealt with off the field, like so many different nuances with all these teams over all this time. So we've done it a lot and we've all grown older in this business together. So it's a lot different from that perspective. I feel a lot more comfortable. I have zero worries or anything when you're going into a meeting. Back then, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to take it, and so you learn a lot. And I've learned a lot every year, and I still learn every time I go into meetings. And you pick their brain and you ask them questions, and it's definitely different from the beginning to now. It's kind of like when I went to the Senior Bowl and I literally had to fake conversations because I literally didn't know anybody. And now I go and you
got
can't
skin
walk
in the game now. Respect factor. Everybody want to talk to you now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Hey, what's funny? I was walking through the hallways here, kind of wearing like the hoodie and the vest, kind of like the Todd France look, and I had a bunch of like NFL guys kind of walk away. Hey, what's up, Todd? No, that's not Todd. And they thought I was looking at Todd.
So Zach, what's a combine week look like for you? You out
Yeah,
there,
so
what
we
you
had
doing? What you like,
it's
how you
it's
maneuvering
crazy,
around?
man. You know, you have access to every single head coach and every single GM on the first Tuesday of the week, and then you have all the players, and they're coming in over 300 guys. They'll be at a podium. You have the quarter.
Mhm.
It's by position group, so you know you got the quarterbacks one day, as you know, the running backs,
Yep.
etc. We're trying to get the local guys, but the big name guys. Who could the Falcons be looking at? You know, we talked to Eric DeCosta, who was on the pod last week. We were talking to him and Cunningham. It's really cool, and then you get to see some of the local guys that you grew up following in high school, right? And now under the Friday night lights, and then they dominated on Saturdays in college, and now they're here living out, as you said, their dream. Like
Yeah.
they've
Yep.
seen this, they've talked about it, they've watched, you know, from they could remember football and the draft and what it means, and to see their dreams so close to being realized, it's a kick on my end, but it just shows I'm pretty old. But the access is cool on the local front because the Falcons hook us up privately with Ian Cunningham, the new GM, and then Kevin Stefanski, the head coach. Other than that, it's just a massive scrum. Try
Is
to
there
get it
other
question.
media here? Is there other media here that you're competing with in terms of Falcons to try to get information? Or so is there other local media too? Is it all national media? I know Ian Rappaport, NFL Network, Schefter from ESPN. I know all those people are here all week, and
It's
obviously
and the NFL will credential anybody. I mean, you got bloggers, you have radio, you have digital people, you have network guys, you have national, you have local TV, you have local radio here, you have the local newspapers. So you're competing to get the questions in because you only have 15 or 20 minutes to get these guys their attention. And so as soon as they finish up, it's like, hey, it's like one of those cattle
Yeah, I
calls.
bet yeah.
it's funny, AD. They used to do an agent seminar here that on Thursdays that you had to go to kind of keep up your agent license, and when you would come out at lunch and or at the end of the day, all the media would be out there because they'd be trying to find the agent to try to talk about whatever their situation is for a player that they think they represent, right? And you get to learn who these guys are. And I'm not, I mean, Zach will tell, I'm not a media guy. Doing this pod is very outside of my comfort zone. Talking to media, I just don't really do it. To me, it's about the players. I like to be kind of behind the scenes. But I was walking you walk through the hotels here in Indy, and I was walking through, and there's at the JW on the second floor. You walk through, and there's always media people there. As you walk through, a guy from such and such, media comes over, grabs you. Hey, Todd, I was hearing such and such on your guy. Like, what's going on? Like, and they want to know, is he being cut? They want to know, are you getting a deal done? I mean, they are fishing for
Just trying to get
information.
the scoop.
Uh,
Yeah.
you got to be smart because sometimes they're just fishing. Sometimes they can trap you, right? Like, and they just think that your guy might get cut, even though, and they're like, hey, I heard that they're about to cut him. And is that true? And you're like, no, that's, or yeah, but not yet. It's going to happen on Wednesday. Now, meanwhile, they didn't
You
really hear
don't know.
that, but
Yeah,
now they got
exactly.
the information from you. So you just got to be real smart. And to me, like basically, no information is the best information. I give nothing. So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. To the GMs and publicly, they just kind of keep it vanilla. AD, they kind of keep it generic. But when you're walking with them from one event to another, I can say, listen, man, who are a couple of guys I should talk to that may be on your board that if I have an opportunity to talk to this defensive end or this center or this wide receiver, it might be good to put on the show. And they might say, hey, man, make sure you talk to this guy. Make sure it didn't come from me. But, Matt, why don't you ask him about interviewing with the Falcons? So you have those relationships Todd was talking about, and it can kind of guide you. But they'll never say that publicly, but, helps you do your job.
Skin in
it's a
the
wild,
game, man.
It's a
it's a wild,
game.
it's a wild week, man. It is between the players that are getting ready to get drafted and going through that process, the agents, the coaches, the GMs, the scouts, the media people. You got the teams and the free agency, on the horizon, and you're working through all that. So combine week is a real busy week, a lot going on. And by the way, we're talking about here, like you still have all your clients that are not here. And so you're talking to them and their families and or their wives or whatever, to kind of update them on what's going on, as it relates to them if they're wanting some sort of question answered. So constantly moving and different things happening across the board. So it's a lot. It's a lot of action for sure.
Controlled chaos.
However you
True
want to frame it.
chaos.
Man.
Yes.
However you want to frame it.
I don't miss that. It was a hell of an experience, but I don't miss it, man. It's a lot. It's a lot to go into it, man. A lot. I mean, I forgot a lot of all the doctor stuff, all the you remember a glimpse and stuff of me. I remember a glimpse of the combine and certain stuff, but like here, Todd's talking, I'm like, damn, that is right. We did do that. We did do that. I'm like, golly, that was a long week.
It's fun going down memory lane with you, AD, and great stories about owning the moment, having so much fun here not that long ago. Todd, what a week, man. Good luck with everything, and hopefully when we chat next week and say, yep, Information was flowing, feeling good. 2026 draft in Indy was a success, man. We appreciate everybody's time. Thanks again for listening, joining, liking, sharing. For Aaron Donald, Todd France, I'm Zach Klein. Thanks for joining us on the Inner Circle Pod. We'll see you next week, everybody.